Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Sonic CD. In the last part we started off the game and now we're in Collision Chaos and hi Amy again. I must be going so I'm gonna go. I can't go anywhere else. Oh hey! Should probably put her down. Nah, okay. Well, if it's not obvious to fans of the series at this point, this is the introduction of Metal Sonic, Sonic's not Shadow the Hedgehog rival. And, well, he just took Amy, and even though we're not the biggest fan of her, we should probably try and get her back. Now, one thing I'm going to do in this zone in particular is read the game story, but I should probably go over Collision Chaos as a whole first. Collision Chaos is Spring Yard Zone from Sonic 1 on crack. A lot of pinball and gimmicks going on in it, and not all of them work too well with the game's physics, sadly. Love the music, though, especially in the Japanese soundtrack. And as for where the robot generator is in Act 1's past, it's about halfway, a third of the way through on, yet again, the highest platform. It's like in this weird reverse S-curve area. Either way, let's go over the game's story. I'm going to abridge it because I don't feel like reading an entire manual for part like I did back in Metroid 1. You see, 1 month out of every year, the planet we're on, that was in the little animated intro, Little Planet shows up over Never Lake. And Little Planet's a bit of an enigma because time flows freely on it, free of anything else around it. That's why we can travel through the past, the future, and the present all willy-nilly, thanks to the power of the Time Stones. Needless to say, because things like that exist, Robotnik learns of it and wants to use it for his planet's world domination. He begins turning the planet into his personal fortress, littering the landscape with mechanical stuff, which are not only powered by the animals of the planet, but as well as the flowers that inhabit it for some reason. But he wants to claim the Time Stones for himself. Thankfully, Sonic happened to be nearby. He's passing through, I'm assuming, to see the beauty that is Little Planet, sees the fact that it's chained down, is now partially mechanical thanks to Robotnik, and goes, no, I'm gonna fix this. And jumps on, only to find in paltry panic, Amy's there because she's his biggest fan, and apparently knew he'd be there due to tarot cards or some shit, which is weird, and thus the journey begins. Now, something I should mention, by the way, about the special stages. Two things, actually. One that'll come into play later in the part. One, the fact that the speed-up shoe UFOs are blue is exclusive to the PC version just to differentiate the two. And two, I forget if this applies to all versions. I think it does. If you fail a special stage and go back into another one, you won't go back to the one you failed on. You'll be looped into the next one. You can't get the previous one back until you loop back around. Like, say, if I failed the second special stage, but then the next 5 perfectly, technically speaking, the 7th special stage I would be completing is Special Stage 2. So, that's a thing. Either way, welcome to Act 2 of Collision Chaos, and I'm not going to go over where the robot generator is here because it's along my path anyway. Because Sonic CD is a game I don't really tend to alternate my paths in unless I really screw up in getting one of them. Because this game's level design is kind of all over the place. Either way, something that is interesting about the PC version is that they actually added quite a few things and changed things to make things a bit easier for you. Namely, the first thing they did was they changed the game to widescreen, which actually kind of helps in this game's case. They changed some minor things in some zones, like Collision Chaos here I think has a few more bumper sound effects. And they also fixed the collision detection, because the original port of the original version of Sonic CD and the PC port, their collision detection was broken. And when I say PC port, I mean the Sonic CD collection, which was CD and something else, not the 2011 PC version. Though I think they also made it take longer for you to actually time travel for some reason, so some things won't work, some methods that worked before won't now. Also, I hate this upcoming section because it's very easy to not be able to control yourself too well, because the little, I guess they're eggs of some sort you're colliding against, bounce you all over the place. I was here for about a minute, so I'm speeding up just so we can get out of here more quickly. I don't like this section, but honestly, that summarizes my experiences with Collision Chaos in total. A lot of just weird platforming that I'm not a big fan of. Also, it's not clear enough by the fact that flowers are all over the place, every here and there. When you destroy a robot generator, all the enemies in that level die immediately. in all three time zones, so makes traversing a lot easier because you only have to worry about the actual environmental hazards. Also, Collision Chaos Act 2 is a bit interesting, and that's a bit like Spring Yard Act 2, I think it was, in Sonic 1, where there are two exits to it, a lower and an upper one. I'm showing you the white of the upper one now, even though I don't actually get to it. I give it about a solid 3 tries before I give up, though. And there is an achievement for getting the upper exits. It's not overall too interesting, but hey, that's there. It's one of the few levels in Sonic history to do that. But let's just continue on into our next special stage. God, I love that. It's so good. Like I said before, I am of the mindset that likes both of the Sonic CD soundtracks, because I think they both have some hits and misses, all things considered. But the stage clear theme of the Japanese soundtrack, which is technically part of the game's main theme, You Can Do Anything in Japan and Europe, is just so good. Either way, one thing I should mention that's actually really interesting is that Sonic CD was originally going to have its own version of Super Sonic at some point, because there was a hidden 8th special stage you could access after getting all 7 time stones. Basically, when you got that time stone, certain monitors would be changed in the levels to have some sort of S on them, which would turn you into an invincible and slightly faster Super Sonic, just Sonic rather, if I recall, with no real graphical change. Which is interesting, and the special stage itself is actually kind of funny looking because the background's just a giant Robotnik head staring you down in the face, but yeah, that's the thing. You can actually still access that special stage through a sound test cheat in the original version. I'm not sure how to do it in the PC version, 2011 PC version, if there is a way even. Not that it really matters too much. Although if there is, I suppose it would probably be through like the time attack mod, because that unlocks a few things like concept art and such. Either way, time for our 3rd level of Collision Chaos, which has an interesting boss fight and another really good song. Yet again, I'm of the mindset that the bad future songs in the game are some of the best. Though, a weird thing about the songs, actually, I don't think I mentioned this last part, is that while the American soundtrack was different, they only changed about 90% of the songs. All of the songs for the past incarnations of the levels are entirely the same as they are in the Japanese version, which gets a little weird when you're suddenly going from American Palm Tree Panic to Japanese Palm Tree Panic. Either way, the boss for Collision Chaos is a pinball machine. I'm not joking, it's Sonic Spinball without being Sonic Spinball. Your goal is to get to the very middle of the top area, which is where Robotnik himself is, at which point you just have to hit him 3 times for the boss to end, and even then, hitting him is trivial once you get up there. The real issue is the stage itself. This goes into what I mentioned last part, in that the bosses are less so bosses, more so challenges of a sort. Which is an interesting gameplay decision that I am actually a fan of, if it not a bit, let me restart that sentence, if not a bit annoying at times. Also, since I just saw it happen there, one little quirk that the 2 spin dash modes have in Sonic CD PC 2011 is that the original Sonic CD spin dash, the one I'm using, as well as the Super Peel Outs, when you start revving them up, the screen will actually move to the left or right depending on the direction you're facing to give you an idea of what's ahead so you can react to things more in time with them. Whereas the Sonic 2 spin dash they added to the 2011 release acts more like the Sonic 2 spin dash, obviously, in that you can go immediately basically after one rev. However, the screen stays centered on you when you're using it. So for this game's platforming, let me restart that sentence. That's another reason why I chose the 2011 spin dash, is so that I can have a bit more consistency in terms of the platforming. Also, I love the Japanese boss theme. It's so kooky. The American boss theme is kind of terrifying, though, as is the Game Over theme. Though that goes into something interesting. A weird little thing they did with Sonic CD is that they gave Sonic a lot more personality in of how he plays. In particular, if you stand still on a stage for about 3 minutes, Sonic will get impatient, start looking at you, go, "I'm out of here," and jump off the stage, giving you a game over. I'm not talking death, I mean straight up game over. And that's hilarious. And it's really scary if you let that happen in the American version, because the game over music there is nightmare-inducing. Either way, welcome to Tidal Tempest, our water level for the game. And the American soundtrack song is basically the opening to Fresh Prince without lyrics. I'm not joking, there's even videos comparing the two. Now, in terms of where the robot generator is for this stage, it's about 3/4 of the way through. I get to an area pretty close to it, underneath a tube. And in terms of what they changed for the 2011 re-release here in this stage, I believe there's a chime before the underwater countdown begins, just like the mainline tiles. In fact, the robot generator was just to my right there. It's below me right now. And I think the air baubles have a slightly higher spawn rate, which is thankful. Though a minor graphical quirk as well. I forget which version does it. I think it's the American Sega CD version or the PC version. But the water is see-through there, whereas here they give it a bit of a green tint, and that's a Steam notification. Unfortunately for this LP, that's going to happen a few times. I get achievements or people go into games or come online, and because of that, the notifications show up on the bottom right. However, because I don't want my friends list to get leaked or I don't want people to get their privacy shown off, I'm blurring it out. That's just because I entirely forgot to turn off the Steam overlay during this recording, these recordings rather, so I apologize for that. Future PC recordings are going to have that fixed for a fact. God, I love this background. Something not only just about the color scheme, because I do like that blue and yellowy green look, but also just the city at nighttime aesthetic. I really like that, especially when it's as cyberpunky as that looks. Now, something I should go over, something that the 2011 re-release added. I know I keep calling it the PC 2011 release, but it was technically on iOS first, if I recall. Is that when you beat the game for the first time, you unlock the ability on the file select to choose and play as Sonic's ever-lovable buddy, Tails, who has his exact same moveset from Sonic 3. The flight for a few seconds, and I think he can swim, I think. He doesn't have the super peel out, though. The opening and ending cutscenes are removed, as is Amy entirely. His gameplay mode is, honestly, a fun way to go through Sonic CD. In fact, I think it almost plays better due to the fact that some of the more ridiculous platforming sections are neutered by Tails' flight. Ridiculous isn't the right word. I suppose the more accurate term is vertical sections. Also, I'm in this special stage for a while, so I'm speeding it up. This is something you can do very easily in the special stages, is that if you keep an eye out for that time-increasing UFO, you can just keep on going over and over again until you get all the UFOs, so you can be in here for a potentially long while. Obviously, I try to get things done as quickly as possible, but it just didn't work out here, unfortunately. But hey, I got it in the end. That's all that matters. Now, one thing about the special stages that was changed for this remake, because this is a remake, not a port, the Taxman built it up from scratch, is that the sprite scaling on the UFOs is different. In the original Sega CD and PC versions, it was a bit harder to tell where you were in relation to the location of the UFOs, whereas here, it feels like you can tell where they are related to you a lot better. A lot more easily, rather. And now we're in Tidal Tempest Act 2, which is one of my favorite songs in the game. The Japanese Tidal Tempest song is so relaxing. Not my favorite song in the game. That's a few zones away. Yeah, zones away, but God, I love this. I love this song so much. Honestly, though, Tidal Tempest is very similar to Aquatic Garden from Sonic 2, in that it's a water level, yes, but if you know what you're doing and what routes to take, you can avoid the water for a lot of it. I'm not doing that here because I want to get as many rings as I can, but that strategy is there. Also, one thing I should go over, another reason I ended the part after Palm Tree Panic last part actually has to do with the fact that I didn't want to split up any of these acts of the zones between parts. Like, I wanted to have all of Palm Tree Panic in one part, all of Collision Chaos, all of Tidal Tempest. I didn't want to say do Palm Tree Panic Acts 1 through 3 and Collision Chaos Act 1 in one part. I wanted to have all the zones confined together. Acts of the zones, rather. Because that just felt awkward for this game in particular for me for some reason. I think I did the same thing in Sonic 3 as well, but it's been around a year since I did that recording-wise, so I forget, honestly. Time does that, don't you know? Also, one thing I have to give Sonic CD a lot of credit for, aside from just being a good soundtrack and game in general, honestly, is that the entirety of one zone and one act outside of that zone aside, the game's pretty stable in difficulty. It doesn't ever really spike. It's a nice curve, aside from those instances I was talking about. Which, I like it when games do that. Also, we're coming up on the end of the stage, and I have over 50 rings, but I'm not showing the special stage off because, honestly, I failed the special stage. And I want to save the surprise of what special stage 6 looks like until I actually do it successfully. So, we're skipping this stage for now. See you in special stage 7. Plus, that explosion made for a good transition to the Tidal Tempest Act 3, and I love Tidal Tempest's Bad Future theme. Ah, it's so good. And the boss here is split up into 2 different halves, technically. The first one, we're going to be chasing Robotnik through this maze of sorts, kind of like the Not Labyrinth Zone from Sonic 4. I think he continues on until you do a certain amount of hits to him, but I honestly forget if that's actually true. Good amount of power-ups, though. And after this is where we get to the real boss fight, technically. It's underwater, which seems threatening, but then you get to the actual fight. Robotnik surrounds himself in air bubbles, the very ones we need to survive underwater, and we just need to get to him. We need to worm our way through the water bubble, the air bubbles rather, not water bubbles. That would be really weird. And just do one hit to him. He only has 1 health point at this point. So it's basically, can you get enough of the bubbles away fast enough so that you can actually worm your way to him himself. Which, you know, again, I really like a lot of the boss ideas in CD. It's just the fact that a lot of them aren't technically boss fights. Hitting him, though, can actually be a bit troublesome, because I don't think he actually lowers himself to a point you can damage him until he's down to, like, the last 3 or so bubbles. Either way, that's the end of Tidal Tempest. Not a very bad water level, honestly. Really good music. Overall, pretty good. Easy boss as well. But with that, I'm going to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching. And in part 3, we'll be continuing on through Little Planet's individual zones, even though the acts are called zones in this game for some reason, and seeing what kind of gimmicks we're going to come across next. See you guys then.